it's good to take care of today with our mental health, but also tomorrow with our kids and making sure we uplift them and help them maybe not have the same struggles that we've had.
Yes, for the kids that I see, they're very open about talking about mental health. But as a general school population, the kids are not as open to talking about it. And if they're not as open to talking about it, then I'm guessing that many other generations of people are still not as open.
We're training our bodies. We should also be training our minds too.
Kids are inundated with so many messages and so much content. They're not able to digest it. They just are not. But it doesn't stop with kids. All of us, like how much content are you actually absorbing?
What's going on, friends? Jason here with the Love Local Chicagoland podcast. Today I'm going to be talking with Kris Salyards about local talks. My friends, we're doing the next one here on May 21st from 6 to 8 right here in front of the studio at Bellworks Chicagoland. And this time we're talking about breaking the stigma with mental health. You know, I think we all know there's a lot of division, a lot of craziness that is happening in our world today. And we're not here to talk about that. What we're here to talk about is the commonalities that we all have with mental health. We've all experienced, whether it's been our own selves or people we know, depression, anxiety, and the list could go on with other disorders that are out there. We think here at Love Local that we're stronger together as neighbors, and that when we amplify the voices of the people that are helping making our communities a better place, that in turn our communities will become a better place. So I'm about to introduce you to Kris Salyards of Bridge that will be moderating this local talk. But I'm super excited to be here today, and I hope that you could join us on May 21st from 6 to 8 for the local talks. But enough of me talking. Kris, what's up?
Nice to see you, Jason.
Nice to see you. You're kind of in this seat sometimes, right? You're a podcaster.
A little bit, yes.
We built this studio for you to amplify voices of men and women that are doing incredible things in our local community, and you happen to be one of them. So I appreciate you being and using the studio for your own stuff, but I'm really excited for this collaboration that we're going to have about mental health and local talks. You know your stuff, and you're a great interviewer. So to get you up on stage to be able to help bring out some stories and messaging from some local professionals is something that has me really excited for the community to be able to see both professionals in our community and the neighbors that are in our community. But tell people a little bit about yourself before we dive in.
So I'm Kris Salyards, obviously from the Bridge. The Bridge provides services to kids and families, mental health services, family stabilization services. I use the studio, the podcasting studio, to amplify the voices of fellow professionals that I work with, and also now with the kids. I think our kids, I think our kids know more than a lot of adults what's happening in the teen universe, and they are really excited to talk about mental health. So I love using this studio for that purpose. But I'm excited about the local talks because I get the chance to work with so many people who are so much wiser and skilled than I am. And I think that being able to tie us together to help unify not only our voices as clinicians and people who are supporting our kids, youth, families, adults in our communities, to inspire a larger audience to hang on to some of those threads. That really is something that I'm very excited about.
Yeah, it's good to take care of today with our mental health, but also tomorrow with our kids and making sure we uplift them and help them maybe not have the same struggles that we've had. So I love what you've done with your show in general and just your overall thought process around that. Because at the end of the day, it's about leaving this world better than we found it, right? So the panel that you're putting up there is pretty powerful. We'll talk about them here in a little bit, but a lot of seasoned, experienced mental health professionals that are going to be on there that are going to have just tremendous stories to be able to help share with the community. To me, like, I'm so passionate about all this stuff and getting these messages out there because I once worked in corporate America. When I worked in corporate America, I didn't know any of this shit. I didn't know that you were doing all, and not just you, but a lot of nonprofit leaders are doing all this great work in our local community to help people. And that's really the case. And now it's just about amplifying the voices, and then for us to come together collectively as neighbors to just do a little bit. Because if we all just do a little bit, I think our world is going to be able to be shaped in a different way. We talked about, when we're talking about the title and putting this mission together, it was definitely about community, or this conversation together, but you came up with the words like breaking the stigma. What does that personally mean to you?
Well, I think since COVID, I think society has done a better job of recognizing mental health as a pervasive and maybe even more emerging need, at least something that we should be talking about. I actually thought we'd come much further than when I started interviewing some of the kids, and they were like, "No, we're still not talking about this. Like we don't need mental health support. We get the support from our families." And I realized in that conversation that yes, for the kids that I see, they're very open about talking about mental health. But as a general school population, the kids are not as open to talking about it. And if they're not as open to talking about it, then I'm guessing that many other generations of people are still not as open. And I think, yes, we're not walking around talking about, well, I went to my, what do you call it?
Your therapist?
No, like our medical professionals. I'm not a medical person, so I don't know all the words, but my gastroenterologist or, whatever. We don't talk about going to our physicians. So I understand that maybe everybody's not as excited about going,
Totally.
yeah, I went to my psychiatrist. Yeah, I went to my therapist. But
why not? If we train our bodies, I think that like a personal training, if we train in our bodies, we should also be training our minds too. And humans, we're kind of messed up overall. So to be able to understand how our minds work, or if we get into certain cycles, to have an outside source be there to support us and to help us get right back on track, it's a game changer. To me, it's more powerful than going to the gym when you work with somebody that is a seasoned professional and wants to help you.
Well, and I also think that we are now inundated with external things that are changing our brains that maybe haven't existed, 20 years ago.
Talk about the phone and social
media.
media.
The phone, social media, lots of other, kids are inundated with so many messages and so much content. They're not able to digest it. They just are not. And they're not really able to understand it. But it doesn't stop with kids. All of us, how much content are you actually absorbing? And then what is that doing, right? When you're getting those dopamine hits, what's it doing to your brain, right?
Yeah.
So having somebody, if we think about mental health professionals as helping us reset our brain also and help us reestablish some of those healthy brain patterns, I think it becomes a lot less, carries a lot less of a stigma maybe. Because our brains are being changed.
100%. Yeah.
And so we have to do something to get ahead of that and to talk about it.
Yeah, I think it's something we need to be aware of, because this thing could be really addictive, and it could put us into. I always think about if you're not controlling the input, then what are you getting, and do you want all of that information to you? And what I found out is I don't want all that information fed to me, especially in certain parts of the day where maybe I'm not feeling my best or whatever. You could get lost into the algorithm very much in an unhealthy way. And especially I would think for kids too, even more so. You're still developing your critical thinking skills as you evolve. So I think with the goal of understanding what this thing's doing to our society, and understanding that we need to learn from it, use the good from it, but at the end of the day, we need to get out of the algorithm, get into our front yard.
Yeah.
We need to be talking to our neighbors. We need to be talking to people, maybe like a therapist, to work through our stuff, because life is hard and it's meant to experience joy. But when you're struggling with mental health, and I could say this from my own experience of what I've gone through, it's really hard to experience joy. We should experience that. So if you're not experiencing this as a neighbor or as somebody out there, it's not about keeping the mental health in the family. It's like, how can we work together? How can we, for us, how can we, our role is how can we put a badass nonprofit leader that's a podcast host on a stage with other amazing people that have these great stories that are uplifting people? Because if we bring more knowledge to the community and more people come out into the front yard and more of us start talking about it, we're going to break down that stigma, because I think we're going to learn that we all have our issues, and if we all just work on them and we all search to be able to try and find joy, whatever that is for us, life is just better, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and we are, as humans, we're built for connection, and
100%.
we're built for community. And
We want to
again,
belong to something, right?
Absolutely. And I think there's several structures and institutions have changed, since COVID. People are more isolating because they realized I can be not a people person, and that just gives me permission to stay home. But actually, as much as we'd like to stay home, it's also not really good for us. The working from home has created a lot of additional isolation. Spending so much time interacting with Zoom, so you're interfacing with your technology constantly, and your human contact is this far away, right? So you're also having very close contact, but not really. Then you've also got, again, we go back to the social media, but then people have stopped congregating in churches as much as they used to.
The churches are dying in front
right?
of us, yeah.
So
it's considered a secular age, I think, by many, but
right.
it's a different
topic.
topic.
So, we're sort of exacerbating symptoms by removing ourselves from engagement and from connection. And so how do we start to reach across the fence to the neighbor and, help each other with our lawns? I mean, when I first moved into my house, my neighbor came over uninvited, but it was fine because I got to meet them. But they helped us with our yard work, and they were like, this is what you should do here, and this is how you should do that. And we were young, we didn't know. So, I think we need more of that connection. And so if there's a place where we can start that here at Bellworks, where we can start opening people's minds to not only that level of the conversation, but strengthening it, right? Give a task, reach out to 5 people. Think of how big the net can grow just by planting a seed.
Yeah, especially we feel called to be able to build this space. At the end of the day, we're a media company, and we could make videos and podcasts for people and do their event coverage all day long and probably live pretty fruitful lives. But we didn't think it was cool to just build a media company that didn't serve the community in times like this, because it's being able to set the stage to be able to have conversations that matter with professionals, to bring community together. We have a lot of the same beliefs. I think we're all connected in some way, and we could come together and we could hear from people, and we could have some takeaways, and we could go back out into our community. That 6 degrees of separation, I've seen that firsthand in our community, is fire. When things take toll, it goes where I think it could be abundant. But it's about creating a space. And you are came in when I asked you, you said yes, and you didn't even know exactly what we were doing yet. But I talked about mental health in the community and getting a group of professionals up there that you would pull the stories out of, and you were in. Why do you think it's so important to create this type of space right now, talking about this topic?
Well, it goes back to the people that I intersect with in my professional life are all people who are helping people. So Laura Swanland, who is the Director of Mental Health Services for District 15, she knows firsthand what the needs are in every kid under 8th grade in a school district, one of the largest school districts. That's a very powerful knowledge set, right? And also knowing what we know about the runway. What can we do to elevate the conversation so that people start taking an interest in what's happening in this sphere? Quinette, she is the head of the mental health board for Schaumburg Township. She has started helping people build programs and projects to address mental health in the lifespan. Again, another person with a pretty big knowledge base of people who she knows need support in one township. So if we know that these things exist, why not shine a light on them, come together to talk about them, and help people realize there's nothing wrong with helping your neighbor. There's nothing wrong with seeing a therapist. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. There's nothing wrong with taking a little medication to help you through a really tough time. Because ultimately, a healthy community is the best community.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm very interested in the mental health of the community I live in.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
We all
because
should be. Yeah, it impacts us all, right? And if, to me, it's, especially our kids, I think there's a lot of commonalities for us, but when we talk about the kids, it's like, we need to help them, but maybe we also need to help the parents. I just had that conversation the other day with somebody. It was like, it's definitely need to help the kids, but like some of these parents might need help too. And to get away from this stigma and to go with a helping hand as a neighbor, there's no better time in history to be able to do that, at least that I have acknowledged, because we all want that connectedness. We all want that belonging. We all struggle. If you don't struggle, you're probably not human, because that's kind of a part of the human ride. But for me, it's really exciting to collaborate with people like you that get to look at like, well, what is needed in our community, and who needs to be on this stage to get this right message off to the crowd that we're going to bring here, and what type of messages do they need to be able to hear so that we can be a stronger community. Because at the end of the day, it takes all of us, right? Like if your kid goes to school with somebody that, and you might be mentally fine at home, or they might be mentally fine, but they go to a school with a kid that's not, or maybe comes from a home that doesn't, believe in mental health or whatever that case is, or doesn't put it at the forefront, that's going to impact your kid some way or not. And I'm not Laura. I don't know the specifics of it, but I can tell you that as a kid that once grew up and saw mental health struggles all around me, I could tell you that it impacts you. So to say that it's not my backyard or it's not my family, I would kick back and say it's kind of all of our jobs to make sure that the next generation is taken care of. And it's going to take each of us being able to get out of the algorithm, go talk to people that are out in the community to help us bring more awareness to all of this. Next question I want to bring up to is, You're moderating a conversation that is of seasoned professionals, from nonprofits to people that work on mental health boards, to people that work in school boards, to therapists, and you're going to be doing it to nonprofit leaders. You're going to be doing it to business professionals in the community, but you're also going to be doing it to neighbors. I think that's our goal with Local Talks, is to kind of bring us all in together. What makes that type of conversation? I'm assuming, rephrase that. What type of, what do you think that type of dialogue is going to be able to, that you're going to be able to bring? What is that going to bring to the people that are in the community or in the crowd?
Well, I think it's impact, right? It's impact and maybe reframing, reshaping how we see or think. If you are someone who works with multi-generation, you can actually see how their generation thought about mental health. When I was coming up, it was, we do not talk about what happens in our home, right? Whatever happens here stays here. You can never repeat it. That also means you can never go to a therapist. It was just like,
I see it in my family.
Home secrets are home secrets, and you keep them there. And when they were kids, it was even more exacerbated. It was
like a sign of weakness, right?
It was a weakness, for sure. And then you have the kids who went to college through COVID, who all they want to talk about is their mental health, and they're also in the workplace now. I need time off. I'm stressed out. I need, personal help days, or what are they called? Self-care days. And And so you're also managing these different personalities in your employment, among the people that you work with and for. And that is a really interesting way to look at the adult side of things, right? And to help people realize that the way that our generations taught us to think about mental health is how we will think about mental health. But is it possible to stretch our thinking just a little more and reshape what we actually know about what's happening today? I think that as the systems we have historically relied on to provide us with safety nets of services and supports, as those come apart with our new administration, and we need to build new sets of systems and structures to fill whatever gap that looks like, because we don't know. I think it's really important for all of us to be at the table and understanding this, because really, I think it'll be left to our institutions, our education institutions, our state, DHS, whoever moves in to fill some of those gaps. It's up to us. So we have to know how we think about it. We have to know where it falls in our priority structure. And we have to understand that left untreated, it will get worse. Mm-hmm. I mean, they found...
Well, we could fix it now by building bigger tables.
That's right. Yeah. It all starts with community. And it's going back to the grassroots way of doing things. Mm. How do we tap our neighbor and say, hey, I want you to listen to this story. Hey, I want you two to come listen to this story. Right? Mm-hmm. It's just an opportunity for us to have the dialogue so that we can start thinking about it in ways that are important to us. Because I think mental health is important to everyone. It's just a matter of where in their priority structure it falls. Mm-hmm. And for us, sitting at the table, for us, sitting on the panel, it's top priority. But that might not be for everyone else. And it doesn't have to be. That's why we exist. But we should talk about it. Mm-hmm. Because what happens when...
It's not just about us. It's about us collectively, right?
Collectively. Mm-hmm. The news, it'll feed you all the bad news you ever wanted to read, right? Mm-hmm. But it's this road rage incident. This person did this. This person, harmed this person. This kid did this. These stories are so rampant, and the root of it is mental health.
Yeah, that's so insightful, Kris. How do you think community-based conversations like the one we're going to have on May 21st can help us improve mental health, the shame around it, the silence around it that's been there? How do you think how do you think we could level up?
I think it's a loaded question because I think, again, going back to systems, structures, resources, I think it's so critical for us to understand. What happens if Medicaid starts having conditions attached to it? What if people lose Medicaid? What if people are losing their jobs left and right? So what happens if they don't have access to insurance? What if they can't afford marketplace insurance? What if the wait lists get so long that people are waiting for 6 or 8 months for services, which is a real thing? So I think it's not just about educating, but it's also about understanding the fabric, the social fabric, the safety net that wraps us all, so we can understand how intertwined all of these systems are and how important the conversation has to be. Because I say, I want to go get it.
It's like a 911.
Right.
We need to talk about it.
We
right?
have to talk about it. Because let's say I want a therapist. Okay, fine. I have the access to figure out how to find a therapist. Cool. But maybe I don't. And maybe I've gone to 3 therapists and my therapist didn't work for me. And now I'm running out of options. And so it's also about understanding what it means to have a strong therapeutic support structure, right? Mental health support structure. So people like Greta from Illuminate Therapy, so important to our...
Panelists as well.
Yes, so important to our community, right? Mm-hmm. Because she has her own practice, The Bridge. We are community-based, so we offer free sliding scale Medicaid insurance. We offer it all. but I am limited in the number of people I can take unless I have resources. So I wish I could say it's just about awareness building, but it's more about coming together as a community, thinking about how I and my everyday intersect with the concept of mental health, and figuring out, is it important enough for me to get involved somewhere? Somewhere.
Just do a little bit. You don't have to do it all.
Yeah.
But just get
Volunteer.
involved, right?
You can volunteer. You can become an advocate. You can call your legislators.
It starts with awareness, but it's actually it's time to roll up our sleeves.
Yeah.
That's we all need to know about it. Many of us do. We know more of us are okay with mental health than what we once were, but now that there's still a lot of struggle that's out there, right? So to what I'm hearing you say is it's going to take all of us, that this mental health, a good chance it's continued to be impacted negatively, at least in the short term. So it's time for us as community members, as neighbors across our country, and hopefully even further than that, to roll up our sleeves, to jump in where we can, and in that, whether it's with mental health or find your other niche, whatever that is, just start doing something for good, because the world's kind of a hot mess. But especially with mental health, I think for me is such a hot topic, because I once struggled with mental health and I was a different human. Once I went to therapy, once I worked through my things that I needed to work through, life is joyful. It wasn't before, and it sucked and it hurt, and I did things that would hurt me, not physically, but internally would hurt, right? So, and I think many people that are out there that do struggle, we could come together and we could support one another and help each other. And I think that's so important, especially the ones that have made it through it, or that or have developed coping mechanisms. Like, maybe you go see something from your neighbor, that maybe you see something that they're in a bad headspace. You can start asking questions. You could be curious. You could maybe ask questions to bring out something in them that they didn't see, to try to be able to help them, whatever that could be. But it starts with awareness, but it's time to roll up your sleeves, to me, as neighbors. A couple more questions before we wrap up, and then we'll rock this thing out. Next question is, with what we're doing, we think stories matter. That's how we're tying all this stuff in together, because we think through stories we could connect, and through stories once we connect and we could have commonalities, then maybe the healing can start from us. And we think we have a great opportunity now with the way social media is developing, and media in general, that we could create change, that in our own way we're rolling up our sleeves to be able to help amplify the voices of the people in our community. So we love stories, and people know that for us. But for you, why do you believe storytelling matters in the work of breaking the stigma around mental health?
Because until the beginning of time, or since the beginning of time, stories are what connects people. I mean, facts and figures put people to sleep. You know what I mean? Statistics are a snooze fest. But knowing how I can connect, right? Because it's not about telling me something that I need to understand from a logic. It's how I respond emotionally and physically to that, right? And that is really what the story does. Is it invokes some sort of a response from someone, and it inspires them to tell the story again, to tell it to more people, to find more stories, because that's where it begins and that's where it ends. I had an interview with someone this past weekend, on Monday, and she came in a day early for her interview. If she knew I was telling the story, she'd be mortified. But she had a seriously traumatic event happen to her family on Saturday night, and I knew something was wrong with her, because I never met her before, but she was definitely off. So she's there for an interview a day early. I'm not prepared, but I'm like, I'm going to interview you anyway. And I bring her into my office, and I just say, you don't look okay. Like, are you prepared for this interview? And she's like, I had a crazy thing happen, and if I told you, you wouldn't believe me. And I was like, well, now you have to tell me. And she told me her story, and it was not my story to tell, but I promise you I told it 10 times, because what happened to her was so weird. And I'm like, that could happen to me. And I feel like I can do
You
something
relate
about
with
it.
it.
Totally.
You had empathy for the message she was sharing with you, so that you could help change your perspective.
Right. Well, and then I told the story last night to someone else, and she got up and she changed. She locked her door because it had something to do with breaking and entering. And I was like, that stories matter, right? Because you're thinking, well, this lady didn't know this person at all, right? So I told the story to someone who knows me twice removed, and that story that she told inspired her to take an action. So stories matter, and not always bad stories. I mean, although we do thrive on on negativity, and so negative stories typically inspire us to do something. But what if we didn't have to do active shooter drills in schools? Like, I mean, I remember having to sit under my
tornado
history book in the hallway because a history book was going to save you from the tornado. Remember?
That sounds like a good plan,
right? But I think, what if that wasn't our kids' reality?
We control our narratives, and it's hard sometimes with this thing, and to be able to do that. But I truly believe that we can. And sometimes things come in our way into our story that are unexpected, that do not feel good, that create some type of trauma as you're working through things. But that's why it's so important to talk about it and to get it out. Like, why we need to talk about mental health, why we need to talk and share our stories with people, not just mental health, but just our stories, because there's commonalities in stories. And when we have commonalities, then we could understand where one another's coming from. And I think that's important, especially in this time in history where, this is my opinion, but I feel like we're kind of being built to divide. Well, what if we were just built to love and support one another? I think that's a better way to be able to go. And I think we could do that is if all of us kind of work on fixing ourselves first, and then go out with a helping hand to uplift that next person. I want to touch base as we talked a little bit about the panel, but I just want to, before I ask you the last question, the panel. So let's go through we have 4 people so far, right? And there might be some more coming, but let's talk about the 4 people, real quick, high level overview, who they are for the audience.
Okay.
And who they're going to see talk.
So Laura Swanlund is I'm going to mess it up, but I think she is the Director of Mental Health Services for District 15. I've worked with Laura for as long as I've been at the Bridge. Incredibly intelligent woman with just a plethora of knowledge.
She's totally sitting right behind you right now, too. And she's like, yeah, that's right. I know, I'm joking.
Quinette, she is I believe she is the head of the mental health board for the Schaumburg Township. Quinette, I had a crazy idea for a pilot program and put in my proposal, and Quinette didn't fund it, but she is my liaison to the funding, and I think is as excited about this pilot as I am. She is also phenomenal, knows a lot about what's going on in Schaumburg Township for mental health. Greta, she owns Illuminate Therapy. Greta has been sort of floating around in the Bridge orb for as long as I've been around there. She is I would call her a private practice partner for the Bridge. And then Shannon is the Bridge's clinical director and director of strategic partnerships. And Shannon has her own private practice. She's worked in mental health for many, many years, and has joined our team to run our clinical services. So I think we have a really great sample of people from the public and private sector who are going to help us illuminate these stories.
Yeah, no, I think that's important. I'm excited to be able to host this with the rest of us at Love Local, because we think mental health is important. Your words, not mine. Why should people come? What are they going to get from us? High level overview. Give us 2 or 3 sentences.
I think people are going to hear impact. They're going to hear this is not a scary topic. It affects everybody in some way, shape, or form. If you felt grief, you've had a mental health issue.
Yep.
If you felt trauma, if you had trauma, you've had a mental health issue.
Yep.
We are not.
Both of those are highly involved in being a human, too.
Yes, and you're not going to leave this world
Yeah.
without having some sort of experience with mental health.
Yes.
And if you are one of the lucky, less than 0.5% of people who live a happy-go-lucky life from the time you show up until the time you leave, I guarantee you know somebody else in your orb who has had a mental health issue or has struggled with mental health. There's nothing wrong with it. Let's talk about it.
It's time we put in that work, like we put in the work to go to the gym or go to a doctor to make sure we're taken care of, kind of like you said with other things. Like our brain is probably the most important thing to take care of at the end of the day. Kind of helps feed everything else. So I'm excited for this panel. I'm excited for seeing you up on stage, being able to help amplify the voices of the women that are going to be up there. I think it's really important. So until May 21st, keep kicking butt and taking names. But I'm grateful for you, and I'm looking forward to this collaboration.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on today, and I can't wait for the panel. It's going to be a really great day.
Yeah, I agree. So, my friends, mental health matters. We're doing local talks, and we're going to do 4 of them total this year, with this being the second one, because we think that we're stronger together as community members, and especially when it comes to mental health. You know, we don't know who's struggling. You could walk down the street and probably see people struggling. That could be your neighbors. You could go into the gas station, go into the store, and I promise you there's people around you that are struggling. What if we could come with a helping hand? What if we could broaden our perspectives? We could learn, maybe we could unlearn, and we could grow as neighbors. It's kind of what we're trying to do here with Love Local. This one about mental health hits home close to us because for me personally, someone that's experienced mental health addiction throughout their life, like life's just much more joyful when we understand where we're coming from, and we give ourselves grace to work through the hard stuff, because as Kris said, life hits us all in different ways. And when we know how to process things, when we know how to see it in others, and when we lead with a helping hand, our communities are stronger, and that's what we're all about. So we'll see you on May 21st, 6 to 8 here at Bellworks Chicagoland, right in front of Love Local Studio. Cole Keller will be here. He's behind everything now, but he'll be here as well, the other side of Love Local. I'm excited for you to continue to get to know him. Support local, love local. We're stronger together. Mental health matters. See you on May 21st from 6 to 8. Peace.